our program is content-based, so students are studying different issues related to science, history, education, and there's always something in the newspaper that complements what we're doing in the classroom. It not only tells you what's happening now, but many times the articles give you background, the context for what's happening, and that's critical for understanding. So the Times becomes, depending on the issue, the level of difficulty of the article, and the timing of when a piece appears, it either becomes the text that we study the next day, or it's just used for reference and independent learning.
They get in the paper things that they can't get in textbooks, that up to the date, up to date, up to the moment things that are happening right now, and it connects them with the reality of the world in a way that books really don't, textbooks really don't. I think even if you read a history, let's say, of the Middle East conflict, there's a way in which it becomes kind of distanced by being in a book. It's something that's already feels past, especially to students today. I think the past becomes the past very quickly. The present becomes the past very quickly, I guess I could say. And that's something that happened last year, or that's something that happened 10 years ago. It's not very real. But something that happens today, yesterday, is much more real. And I think it's important to get that sense of things being real outside of their individual small world.
Much of their political information comes from the internet and even television, the Comedy Central, Jon Stewart and others. So I think that it's helpful to have the newspaper to provide a contrast, just kind of a counterbalance to what students are getting online.
$50 for a whole year in comparison to a textbook. We pay about $50 for a textbook for a quarter of the year. So $50 for the whole year really wouldn't be that much compared to a textbook, because it can be read for so many different classes, for all the business classes definitely, and then for anything that has to do with politics or history or society. I mean, it's just a great supplement to anything you're reading about.
I feel this enhances the student learning, and it also shows them some application of what they are learning, let's say, in a psychology course. If you have an abnormal psychology course, and here you have some articles, let's say, from the science section of the Times that deal with mental illness or some other aspects of abnormal psychology, you can bring that into the class and make learning much more fun for students.
It just leads to very good discussions, especially when you're in a group of people and you get different perspectives.
All of the disciplines at the university have something, some touchstone in the New York Times that they like to relate to, and they like their students to relate to.
Well, the textbook explains to us how we're supposed to do things, like the procedures and the standards, and then it's in a way the New York Times is like the application of those rules and those principles, and we get to see it with like a first-hand news account, like that's going on, that's relevant today.
In our more advanced classes, we do a lot of analysis of how the New York Times covers an article rather than the fact that they did cover the article. Anyone can rehash what happened. Anyone can ask 5 questions. Who was it, what happened, when, where, why, and how, of course, did it happen. But the Times really goes at pulling in the historical factors or the current climate of whatever's going on, and gets at why it's important and why it matters.
I teach a religion and politics class, and I use a textbook to introduce the world's religions, but I use the New York Times as the political textbook to illustrate the relationship of those two institutions in society, both in the United States and globally.
In the textbook, it's it's theories and things but you can apply them to real life, like things that are going on in the real world using the New York Times. You can really learn by using the real life stories. I think that's a more effective way of learning than just learning old theories. I mean, you're going to learn those, but it's nice to be able to apply those to something. I think it's more effective.
While we have our own curriculum and we read stories, essays, articles, we also use the newspaper as a resource, because there's usually something in the newspaper, at least on a weekly basis, that is directly related to what we're studying in class. So to learn more about a subject, we use the newspaper, and it's an excellent opportunity for students also to read independently and to explore things that are of interest to them. And it's a great way to develop knowledge about the world and expand your vocabulary.
As a dean, I encourage my faculty to use the New York Times in the classroom because it's useful in every field. Theater arts, it's useful in music, it's useful in politics, sociology, women's studies, it's useful in anthropology, it's useful in philosophy and religion. I mean, it has such substance that you then can use as a tool to help a student really learn what's happening and see how it's relevant to their own lives and how they might make a difference in the world.
Well, I can say, honestly, the New York Times is a tremendous resource, and I'm delighted we have it. It's right now hard to conceive of our curriculum and our program without it.